Imagine opening your email to find years of history deleted. Only a single email remains. A ransomware request for $2 million. You think to yourself, how could this happen to me? You see, there's two types of companies. Those that have been hacked and those that will be hacked. The weight of responsibility comes crashing down on you. It's the sort of responsibility you feel when your family is craving a delicious pizza. You finally open the box only to find the most cringeworthy topping that you mistakenly ordered. Join Pineapple on Pizza podcast as John and George, along with guest executives, discuss the most common and craziest cybersecurity risks, followed by actionable tips and strategies that can be implemented to protect your cyber risk pie. Pineapple on Pizza is hosted by Omnistruct.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Pineapple on Pizza. Today's guest is Mike Randall, president of Digital Beachhead and recognized keynote speaker, CISSP, MBA, and many other acronyms that we'll get to talk about here in the next few minutes. Mike, we like pizza. We like cybersecurity. Assume that the crust is a cybersecurity framework and the toppings are the company's specific flavors. What's the riskiest topping you've seen, and what would you equate it to?
The riskiest topping, anchovies, because you never know what you're going to get. And to me, that's your users. That is the people at the end of the line who really don't want to do bad, but oh man, kittens. I love me some kittens. And I got to click on this beautiful kitten meme that came in from my mom, even though it came to my work mail.
Either that or, the PayPal, hey, you got money.
Exactly.
Right?
And the biggest one now, Amazon. Your Amazon package is not going to be delivered today like expected.
No. the horrors of today.
I know. Such first world problems. I have to click this right away and solve this issue.
And so being an anchovy, I mean, okay, so it's does that mean it's salty? Does that mean it's, and I mean, there's definitely people that love anchovies, right? I mean, that's why we've got Pineapple on Pizza as the name of our as the name of our podcast here, right? So pineapple is definitely one of those items that some people have really strong feelings about. Anchovies are right there with it. Now,
yep.
But I think the topic you brought up is definitely much more of like a pepperoni, right? I mean, everybody's seeing that problem. So
that's true. That's true. I think it's the ever debate between technology and the human resource. A lot of your IT folks like to put in the devices and the software and I found this new gadget and this new widget will do this. And they kind of forget that the stinky topping on top of their pizza is really the person sitting down the hall.
The tools and automation are part of it, but and as engineers, a lot of engineers just love to automate, but they don't think about the human factors much anymore, and that definitely becomes part of the movement forward there.
Yeah.
So how many companies have you worked with that actually talked about or that had some sort of systems, and what was the best way that you saw a company deal with that problem?
Well, we like to say training, right? We're always talking about training. I think the key is trying to make the training fun so that it isn't that laborious chore that, oh my God, here comes that email again. So trying to gamify it, and make it interesting amongst the company, as well as then you have to do the phishing tests, right? We got to be testing out and seeing if that training is actually, slumping in. Exactly. We worked with a client, and the first time through, they said, we don't necessarily want to redirect them right to training. If they fail the phishing test, we'd rather see who fails, you know what I mean? And take the knowledge for ourselves, and then we'll move into the training afterwards. And they had one poor individual who really wanted their $25 off coupon for Starbucks. And when they got the 404 page not available, when they clicked the link file, came back every day that week to try that link again to make sure they could get that coupon.
People
So
do strange things for money sometimes.
I was like, your employees are dedicated to their tasks. Once they get their mind on something, they will work to completion.
And so what's the best way that you found to actually have that sink in? Is any special tricks that you want to share with us?
I think, like I say, the gamification and the phishing tests, to where instead of doing the go to 404 and we don't really know, and we just realize that you're, really after that link, is to make it interesting so that people kind of know the phishing tests are coming. I don't want to say on edge, but are kind of like hyper aware. So advertising out like, hey, this training you've been doing for 2 to 3 months and these cute little gamifications, guess what? Now we're going to try to phish you. We will be this adversary. So we want to see what you've learned. And then creating a phishing button, something that they can click, and then offering some sort of, if you get 75% of the fish we send out by clicking the phishing button, you can actually get that $25 gift card to Starbucks or something,
Or just notify them that you're going to send out the notification every month, and that way they're hyper vigilant that entire month looking for your test.
We have clients that come through and say they're clicking the phishing button, and a lot of it is phishing. They don't even realize that it's not us, and they're like, "Look, I hit at least 90 of those. I want my $25 gift card." And you're like, "Yeah, but only 3 were the ones we sent." But great job catching all the fish.
Yeah, humans, we're good at processing certain things.
For sure.
I think you have to have that momentum or that drive, right?
What's the most challenging training that you've had to do? Like where we're like, how's this going to work?
I think a lot of times the most challenging are those folks that think they may know more than they really know. And it tends to be your C-suite and or engineers. Not to knock on either of those, but I've literally had CEOs tell me, I just can't believe my employees would click on this. And their assistants will come up and go, I read through all his email because I know he clicks on it. Yeah. So these things happen. And I think it's because phishing is more sophisticated, and a lot of people still believe it's the, Nigerian prince offering you $4 million if, you can only help them get it out of the bank. And so when they receive the very well-crafted, well-designed phishing emails, they're like, that can't possibly be a fish.
My question was kind of pick up where we left off, was the craziest, like almost insurmountable training. And there was an event that I went to where Dr. Christine Izokar was presenting on how she did security awareness training, because she was for United Airlines and all the pilots that are in the air, right? So not only do you have pilots who need rest, and how do you figure out how to get all of them trained?
Right.
And so that was the function and the focus of, her challenge. It was an interesting journey to hear it, how she dealt with it. She had to get on the road and go to their hubs and catch them when they were idle, and work around their schedules, which, were
around their downtime too, because you can't task them when they're on crew rest.
Yeah. And there's, of course, collective bargaining, right? Getting them trained in the schedules and the work and the rest and all, I can't even imagine. So, but it's been done. So I don't think there's any excuse if you can train pilots in the air.
Exactly. I immediately think of heads up display while they're flying on autopilot, do the training.
Exactly. She's like, when we clearly they were not taking the course while they were flying the plane. Right? So.
That's when I would put it in. I've also joked that the easiest way to train users is to be able to send an electrical shock to the chair or mouse should they click.
It's always the chair keyboard interface, right?
That's right. No, it's sad because I think the users, they're our greatest sensor, right? When we talk about deploying sensors on a network, to me, your users are your number one sensor. And so making them feel that way really is the key through training, education, and just straight up talking about cyber so that they know, look, I'm not doing this to task you. I'm doing this because you are the most valuable resource when it comes to protecting our company.
Yep. That's absolutely true. So I know that as a CEO, we often, or leaders in general, you're always concerned about what keeps you up at night. So, making sure people are doing the right thing, especially when nobody's watching, is definitely on the list when it comes to cyber awareness.
Absolutely. And so I like to, walk the walk. I try to say I would never task anyone with something I wouldn't do myself.
Yeah.
So I'll take the training too. I'll be on that leaderboard.
So with that, keeping you up at night kind of concept, what keeps you up at night in your role as the leader?
We have a diversity of clients doing cyber risk management and is our clientele. We work a lot with the defense industry base. So we have a lot of threat actors that we worry about beyond the user, beyond the poor person being clicked. It's the what happens next. And typically, if you can see an intrusion, they're clumsy. A good intruder, you won't know they're there till long after they decide to actually take action on that intrusion. So that's what keeps me up at night. Coming from the military and the DoD background, we've seen some of that in my past life. So that, if I see you, that just means you aren't really that great, Yeah. So it's the ones we don't see that causes me to worry.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on that one. I think even more so is the looking back at the things that have happened, especially more recently, that kind of make you step back and go, oh man, boy, this problem is bigger than I think most really want to admit to, or even can acknowledge or fathom. So
yeah. No, it's scary because we deal mostly with small to mid-size who aren't expecting, a nation state kind of hacker to come after them. But my first response is, well, who do you work with? And almost always they're providing something to somebody. And I'm like, if that somebody is someone you think the nation state would be interested in, do they want to pound on Fort Knox to try to get in, or come into your little 7-Eleven and see if they can, go through the back door to get in?
Yeah. Jiggle the locks and
exactly.
Try. I mean, your IP address looks just like their IP address. Your emails look just like their emails. So, welcome to the world.
Right. And if they have 100,000 employees and a major defense contractor, they probably have some defenses up. Where when it's 50 people and your cousin Jim is the IT director because he spelled IT in a meeting, that makes it a little more interesting of a target, for them to, approach.
Organizations at scale are tricky, that's for sure. And there are definitely scale happening there.
Yeah, I like to refer everything to the analogy of a house. If your doors and windows are wide open, they're going to come through. If you've got an ADT sign and some lights and some cameras, they may pass by.
I think, at least from the perspective of the deterrence, there's a lot of interesting things happening in deterrence. But would we argue they're effective? I would imagine no. But there's no question that our lawmakers have figured out, as well as industries have figured out, that they've got to do something. So,
absolutely.
So that's tied to the issue of, generally what we would describe as statutory and regulatory requirements, statutory, legal, regulatory. Okay? So what do you think is the biggest challenge in meeting the regulatory or statutory requirements today?
I think the biggest one is the confusion of what is compliance. I jokingly talk when I'm with clients or briefings or, places like this. 2-factor authentication. My wife comes in, says it's me, and then I log in. There was one factor and there was another factor. Did I actually secure anything any better by doing that 2-factor authentication? No. But I did, according to a compliance standard where I can check a box, say, do I have two-factor? Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's that marrying together of security and compliance so that your compliance actually provides you what it's intended to do, which is that higher level of security.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think the biggest challenge always is making it relatable, regulatory or statutory. I mean, let's face it. I mean, there's just there's very few considerably technical people out there. I want to state globally, right? There's 7 billion people in the world, and so the percentage of people that know in depth what to do, okay? And so I do wonder often about that challenge of just understanding what the comparison is, and so one thing that we've heard in the past is that that compliance is kind of like a seatbelt, right? But instead of one harness and one click, there's 100 of them because there's 100 different controls for the user.
Yep.
And so if you think passing the seatbelt law and getting people to wear a seatbelt was hard.
Right. Exactly. And the lack of understanding, small to mid-sized businesses with, their cousin Jim, that's the IT person. I often say the IT department is so busy keeping the lights on, the printer's printing, the email flying. It's not that they're unaware of cybersecurity, but when do they have time to go and sit down and come up with a strategic plan for how they want to implement cybersecurity? When you're saying, how come I can't get to this file every 20 minutes? They're never going to get around to how do I protect that file?
And I think that the most aware person in terms of protection and security is not of the digital variety. It's my wife and our 6-year-old.
Yeah.
I put the kid in the seatbelt in the back of the car, right? It needs to be up on his shoulders. Wait, no, this is too tight, and it's supposed to be like this. That's so she's the most compliant when it comes to how it's supposed to be. And I think sometimes that's what you get with people and personalities is that some are going to be more diligent and others are not, and that's just people.
Well, and I find that our rule sets and compliance and regs, they're going at a snail's pace when technology is going at the speed of light.
They are.
So how do you keep up?
How have you found to keep up? Is there a way that you found that works?
You can never get ahead of the curve, I think, because technologies, which is a blessing that we dream up new and better ways to fix things. Of course, the bad guys are dreaming up new and inventive ways to breaking things. And so for me, I like to talk about the myth of cybersecurity, because if you feel you're going to get secure one day, you're already behind the boat. It is about risk management and coming in and saying, what steps can I take? What things can I afford? What things can I program for down the line? So you have to do the best you can with what you have right now, but never think that's it. You're always progressing, always growing, always looking.
Well said. Very well said, actually.
Yeah.
We agree with that 100%.
Yeah. So I do a lot of briefings on that where I talk about the myth, because everyone's like, I want to be cyber secure. And I'm like, well, if our US government spends hundreds of millions on cybersecurity and they get breached, a small business that makes 10 grand a week is never going to be able to spend hundreds of millions on cybersecurity. So what do they do? Give up? No.
Well, so that takes us into the next question, which is what excites you about the future? What do you see happening in compliance and cybersecurity, cyber risk management?
For me, it's because it's ever growing. What's exciting the most to me is that people are now beginning to actually care and listen. A lot of the small businesses used to just be, I'm too small. Who wants my data anyway? And I relate it to them. There's the Ocean's 11 movies, the big heist, everything has to move exactly right. And then if that happens, you're going to get the big score. And that's what you see on the news. Those are the big breaches. But how many convenience stores were robbed last night? Thousands, hundreds of thousands, across the world. Well, that's your small time hacks. That's you, the small business owner, that's going to be breached. They're not going to get the big score, but they get enough of you. They're going to be able to collect pieces of information together to do something with it. So for me, the excitement is those small businesses finally going, hey, we need a little help here. Can we do anything, instead of ignoring it because they feel it's a bridge too far?
Perfect analogy, I would say.
Well, thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a Air Force retiree, did 20 years in the Air Force, 12 of that overseas. I designed with a team back in the early 90s something called the Air Force Barrier Reef Project. The whole idea was to create a DMZ and have the boundary and defense in depth. It later became utilized under a different name across the entire Department of Defense. So I was just fortunate enough to be a kid in a room playing with computers. And that was a great start. After I retired, didn't know what I wanted to do, went for work with a big government contracting company, kind of learned how to do contracts and how to run a business on my own by trying to listen to everyone around me. And then when they got bought and I got let go, I said, I'm going to jump in and figure this out on my own. So I started Digital Beachhead just to kind of see if I can do it all, work for myself, be my own boss. I hadn't been my own boss since I joined the military, and it's been an adventure. I like to joke that I came in with a retirement, so my mortgage was covered and my overhead was depending on whether I had Folgers or Starbucks in the morning. I could have a low overhead or a higher overhead depending on what I was drinking.
That's the morning drink. What about the evening drink? We won't go there.
Meister Chow to,
So how long ago? How long have you been a CEO at that Digital Beachhead?
I started up in late November 2015. Started in federal contracts because that's what I knew, and then slowly branched out into the small to mid-sized businesses. The name comes from a performance report. We get annual performance reports in the military. I said I secured the Digital Beachhead for the Department of Defense, to which my commander said I was, full of it. And how dare you, write something so grandiose? And I'm like, well, who's protecting this, that, the other, and kind of described what I thought the Digital Beachhead was, which was not a front line, but all around anywhere there's an IP. That immediately went to, well, you're right. We are securing the Digital Beachhead. And it went from I was securing it to we were securing it. And literally 2 years after it was on my report, it made it to a speech by one of the undersecretaries of defense. He included Digital Beachhead. So I bought the LLC even when I was in the military and said, I need to own that one day and do something with it.
Perfect.
So that was me. I just decided one day to grow up. I don't know.
We all have to do that someday.
I know.
We can still have fun.
So I think I'm still waiting for my decision to do so.
There are days, George, where I wonder too.
One day
speaking of growing up, if you could go back in time and give your younger you advice, what would that be?
There was a quote I learned when I was training with the British, who dares wins. And I wish I knew that when I was younger. I really do. I wish, to not be afraid, right? If you're not willing to stick it out there and put it all on the line, you're never going to know what can be achieved, and that failure isn't failure. Failure is just a lesson to success.
There's many failures that lead to success.
So that's what I would have told myself is, don't be afraid. And that would have been with dating. That would have been with business. That would have been, just life in general, dare.
Yeah. The famous cliche of Thomas Edison? He found 1,000 ways not to build a light bulb.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Until it works, it doesn't. So you got to fail before you succeed.
And Mike, what do you do outside of work?
I actually started a nonprofit. I'm an Afghan veteran, so I started Afghan Promise. We're trying to get those at-risk Afghans out of the country that we made promises to. And right now we're sending food to those Afghans while they wait for our government to do the paperwork to get them out. So that takes up a bit of a time. I like to golf, photography, watch movies, hang out with my wife. That's, if she's listening, that's the most important one.
That was top of the list. I heard that at the top. I really did.
It did.
Well, that's great. I mean, okay, so then how do we find you? How do we find this nonprofit? How do we find you, Mike? I mean, tell us.
You can always reach out via our website, www.digitalbeachhead.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well as Digital Beachhead's on LinkedIn. And Afghan Promise is afghanpromise.com. It's a 501c3, so it's tax deductible. Always happy to have people give what they can, or at least spread the word. I keep joking that all I need is one tweet from Kim Kardashian to say, give me $1 to all of her follows. I'm good.
Or Elon, right? I mean,
anyone
let's see
who's
who gets
got
first.
Hundreds of millions of followers are willing to say, just give $1. That's all I need. Just one tweet requesting $1. I aim small.
Yeah, I hear that. It's in your nature. I can tell just by talking to you. Well, yeah. All right. Mike, thank you very much for being on our show. We absolutely appreciate it, and it's great to get to know you and hear some of these great ideas that you've got, and we look forward to sharing those. Audience, thank you for listening. Hope you've learned something today, laughed, or told some jokes here, maybe either about us or with us, or and just enjoyed the show. And thanks. That's it. This has been another great episode of Pineapple on Pizza with your hosts John and George, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all for joining another great episode of Pineapple on Pizza. You can find show notes, links, and resources by visiting omnistruct.com/blog. And a huge thank you to all who are preventatively protecting organizations from cyber threats.